Priscilla Oliveras is a USA Today bestselling author and 2018 RWA Rita double finalist who writes contemporary romance with the Latinx flavor. Proud of her Puerto Rican Mexican heritage, she strives to bring authenticity to her novels by sharing her culture with her readers. West Side Love Story is both a modern spin on West Side Story and Romeo and Juliet, drawn from Priscilla Oliveras' affinity for musical theater and Shakespeare, and a deeply personal novel that pays homage to her grandparents, the traditions they passed down, and the pride and love for their culture they instilled in their familia. It's also a love letter to San Antonio, the author's Poppy's hometown, touching on the impact of gentrification through the Capiletas' fight to preserve their community. And it's a vibrant celebration of mariachi music, particularly the growing trend of all-female mariachi bands, and the music's power to unite across generations. An utterly satisfying, heartfelt romance with an unforgettable cast of characters set within the Latinx community and rich with culture, music, and familia. West Side Love Story is a not-to-be-missed summer read. I look forward to discussing prominent plans for the coverage with you guys soon. And without further ado, let's get into the interview. Welcome to the podcast today, Book Nerds, and today joining me is Priscilla Oliveras, and she's going to be talking about her new book, West Side Love Story. Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thanks for the invite. I'm excited to chat with you. It's so nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you too. And we're super excited to talk about your upcoming book. We've heard it's a Shakespeare-inspired Latin American love story. So first of all, before we get started and ask you all these questions about the book, can you introduce yourself to some of our viewers?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Priscilla Oliveras. I am Puerto Rican, Mexican, so Latinx romance author, USA Today bestselling romance author. I currently have 10 published works, 6 novels, and then there are 4 novellas that are out there that you can look for. But coming up next is like what we've talked about is West Side Love Story. It is a Romeo and Juliet reimagining. So I don't even like to say retelling. It's kind of like my version. If you're a romance fan, then you know it has a happily ever after. If you're not a romance fan and you still want to check it out, then spoiler alert, in the romance genre, a keynote is that the books all have a happily for now or happily ever after. My idea is that not all Latinx stories have to be about our struggle and our strife. And it's nice to see books out there, diverse books out there that actually show people in my comunidad and the Latinx comunidad, you know, living and loving and learning and growing and persevering. And so it's Romeo and Juliet, but with a happily for now ending.
Love that. Thanks so much for sharing that. And then where do you hail from, Priscilla?
Currently, I live in Florida. I will say I was a military brat, so we moved around quite a bit, but summers were spent in Puerto Rico with my abuela there. We were stationed several times in different places in Texas, around Texas, which was nice because then we could go home to visit my dad, my papi's family in San Antonio. And currently, I am in North Central Florida.
All right, that's awesome. And I guess I want to ask you too, so I'm assuming that you're bilingual at least, right?
Yes. I will say I can read. My mom always checks my accents and make sure my grammar is correct because there is some Spanglish sprinkled throughout the books. So mommy always checks that. But I can carry on the conversation. I can hold my own.
Awesome. Love that. That's really good. And then my first question for you is, when does West Side Love Story come out? And then where can our readers find your book?
Sure. West Side Love Story, its big print release day is June 1st. It's available now for pre-order on Amazon. It is with Amazon Publishing. It's a Montlake book. But so it's available on Amazon. It will be print and digital, and there is an audio coming as well. But you can also get it through your indie bookstores. They can order it for you. Barnes and Noble can order it. So if there is an indie in your area that you like to support, please, you can order through there. There's also an indie bookstore just outside of Chicago called Love's Sweet Arrow. And through late May, I'd have to check my website. I should know this off the top of my head, but through late May, if you pre-order through Love's Sweet Arrow, you will get a signed book plate as well as a little mini coaster, the Queens of Mariachi coaster, and it has a QR code that'll take you to a Spotify playlist of music that inspired me while I was writing.
Awesome. That's exciting. And it's right in time for summer too.
Yes, yes, definitely a great beach or pool or just having fun. You want to get up and dance, kind of playlist, some slow songs as well, but it's a good playlist.
Perfect. And Priscilla, do you ever listen to music while you're writing, or are you more of like, I need a complete silence kind of thing?
No, usually I'm listening to, and especially with the West Side Love Story, I listen to a lot of mariachi music, old songs that I grew up like Poppy listening to, we would have family reunions in San Antonio that we would have, but also newer artists like Natalia Jimenez and several others. Obviously, Selena is mixed in there. She's not mariachi music, but she's a great motivational. Her music is so motivational. So typically, I'm listening to music that inspires me within that story. A lot of some of my previous books I listened to, I created a Pandora radio station that's romances, so old Spanish and love songs and newer ones as well. When I'm not in the mood for music, then sometimes I will put on like thunderstorm sound music. So very rarely is there silence. There's usually either beach waves, like ocean waves, or rainstorm, or I'm listening to some kind of Spanish music.
Nice. Is there any song in particular that is kind of like you're vibing with right now or something that you'd recommend?
I would say probably there's a song by Natalia Jimenez, and it's called, and the title is Creo en mí, which means I believe in myself. That was pretty much like that was a good anthem for me while I was writing throughout the pandemic. Pandemic writing was kind of hard for me. And that's when, through the pandemic, is when I wrote both West Side Love Story, and then the sequel to it, book 2, is Kiss Me Catalina. In West Side Love Story, they're standalone books, but you meet all of the sisters, the Capuleta sisters, and they are in an all-female mariachi band. And so there's a lot of girl power and si se puede amongst the sisters. And so that song, Creo en mí, I believe in myself, by Natalia Jimenez, was a good anthem for the Capuleta sisters and for me as well.
That's awesome. I love that. And I'm curious too, since a lot of your work is kind of inspired by like Shakespeare and like maybe like I've heard like old Broadway and things like that.
Oh,
When you come up with your stories, what usually comes to mind first? Is it usually the characters or the plot line for you?
Usually it's the characters. I will say with the new series, so like Kiss Me Catalina and West Side Love Story, I knew that I kind of wanted to see if I could take some of the works of Shakespeare that I have enjoyed and kind of turn it into my own. So there was that idea, but what started first was I saw on the television or on my laptop, a friend had sent me a clip of a television interview of an all-female mariachi band, and that just kind of like clicked something in my head that, oh man, what if, and that what if is a very important author question, right? You read something, you hear something, you experience something, and then you start asking yourself that what if question. And that's how what you saw, so like maybe in real life, becomes more fiction and becomes your story, because you change things, you change the people, that kind of stuff. So for me, like with my debut series, the Match to Perfection series, that one, Yasmin, the heroine in book 1, is a Broadway dancer. And she kind of came to me first. And then as just talking to her, I learned she's got 2 sisters, and I learned about her family, and it kind of goes from there. So typically it's the people. My Keys to Love series, Anchored Hearts, is book 2. I lived junior high and high school in Key West, graduated from high school there. And so I knew I wanted to take readers home with me to Key West. So in that instance, it was a location that I really wanted to write about. And then I just tried to then what came after that was who would intrigue me, what kind of people that, familia do I want to tell their story living there. So it started with a location, but then immediately hopped to the characters.
Gotcha. Do you feel like a lot of the places that you lived before kind of inspire most of your stories of the books that you've written?
It's probably either places I've lived or places like my favorite cities. So the Match to Perfection series, that's His Perfect Partner, Her Perfect Affair, and Their Perfect Melody, takes place in Chicago. I've never lived in Chicago. It's one of my favorite cities. I grew up as a Chicago Cubs fan. I lived in Southern Illinois for about 10 years, 9 years, and would get up to Chicago whenever I could. The Summer in the City anthology, that sunsetting one back there, I have a novela in there, and that is all three of them are set in New York, again one of my favorite cities. But pretty much the locations, even for the books that I have in mind that I'm, the new one that I started, they're either locations that I love, or that where I've lived.
That's awesome. Would you consider yourself like well-traveled, or do you think that you're kind of like you have a few more places that you're kind of itching to get to?
Oh, I have a lot of places I'm itching to get to. So I love to travel. I would say I might be well-traveled. I travel a lot, but it's a lot to visit familia. I'm a mom. My three daughters are all off adulting in the world in the Northeast, and so I go to visit them often. I will try, since I've become a published author, if I have familia in some place I want to go visit, I'll try to set up like a book signing, so that way I'm visiting them, but it's also, a business trip. But there are a lot of places. I lived in Panama when I was like 3 months old to 3 years old. So I don't really count that because I don't remember those memories. So I say I haven't really traveled to South America, and I would love to visit so many countries there. And I've only visited two countries. I've only been to London and to Barcelona, which I loved. So there are a lot of places over in Europe that I would like to explore.
That's awesome. And like, what's your favorite part about the entire writing process when you start like picking up a pen and paper, like picking up your computer, however you start? Like, what's your favorite part of that?
I think the favorite part of the whole process is like getting to know my characters. By the time I finish, they feel like real people to me. When I'm in the process, I have conversations with them. Ana Maria in Anchored Hearts is she's a firefighter, but she's also a nutritionist and a personal trainer. And so there were a couple of times where I need to kind of talk things over with her. And so I would put on my running shoes and we would go for a run around my neighborhood. Or I've sat down and had a beer with a hero while we're kind of working through something, which sounds kind of strange. I know they're not real people, but you have conversations with them. And so I feel like it becomes a responsibility to me as I get to know them and I start to care for them more and more. Like I'm responsible for telling their story as well as I can, because they've come to mean a lot to me. And if I can do a good job with their story, then hopefully a reader picks up their book and falls in love with them, or at least feels like they want to hang out with them and like they've met new friends. If I do my job well, then the reader will care about the character as much as I have. And so I think that aspect of it, it's like making new friends. I can pick up a book and that I've written and get in touch again with it with a friend.
That's awesome. It's like immersing yourself so much in the story that it feels real to the reader themselves too when they pick up your books.
I hope so. That's my goal.
That's cool though. Is there a specific character that you've written that you would say is kind of like developed the most throughout the story or has changed the most?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think if we've done our stories well, or I mean, if we've done our job well, then there should be character growth. throughout, like each of the main characters, and sometimes even some of the secondary characters should have some kind of growth, some kind of change. They're in one place, and even if they think they're happy, then there are parts of their life that aren't, and either they need to change or they need to change something. So I mean, I would say that all of them have changed in one way or another. With with West Side Love Story, it's Angelo learning that it's okay to cut some family strings if he needs to be the true person that he can be. And Mariana is for her learning to let go of some things. All of the Capuleta sisters are foster sisters that have come to Arturo and Berta Capuleta's home and as foster kids, and then they've slowly been adopted. So they are, adoptive sisters now, sisters. But Mariana she needs to learn that she can't control everything, and together they can become stronger and become better and get past their conflicts. Not that they need each other. I don't ever want to say that the hero came and like saved the heroine, or even vice versa. Eventually they would get to where they need to go, but together, like the genesis of a strong romance and of a strong relationship is why this person and this person is the right one. And so together they help each other get to the place where they can, like, that self-actualization that they need. So I guess I hope in a short answer, though I took a long time to say it, was hopefully all of my characters have changed in some way for the better by the end.
That's awesome. No, and kind of going back to what you were saying earlier about when you're kind of like taking a run with your character, sitting down and having a drink with them and just really immersing yourself in the story. Do you ever find it difficult to write for like the opposite gender, where like it's easier to get in the mind of a woman because we are women, or do you think it's easier for you to write as a guy?
I would say, I mean, short answer, probably it's easier for me to identify as the woman. It takes, just because I am, but at the same time, it really, if it's more their issues that, so like with the hero, if you can get to the heart of like what is holding them back, even if they don't even realize it yet, right? But you as the author need to, because you have to push them, you have to put them in situations that's going to make them. So I feel like as long as I can get to the core of my character, maybe it's making sure that their voice is their voice and making sure that Priscilla's voice doesn't get on the page, but that's really with all of the characters. Because I write in what we call like deep third person point of view. So like you and I can walk into a room or whatever, a restaurant, and the things that I'm going to notice are probably different from the things that you're going to notice that you might pick up on. And so that's what I have to remember, that when I'm in Angelo's point of view, everything, and the way he would describe things need to be from his perspective, his language, his words that he would use, not mine. I think watching a lot of other movies, that have male characters, I like to watch ESPN, listening how guys talk, on that, waiting in line at the grocery store. Everywhere you are as an author can be research, and conversations you hear. And so, things like that, other books that you read have helped me anyway, to be able to feel like I can capture my male characters' voices.
Nice. And kind of bouncing off of what you said with capturing the voices of like the different characters, do you have any other friends or close mentors that have kind of inspired you, or like any books that you're reading now that have kind of inspired you as a writer?
Oh, yes. I think, yeah, like, we joke sometimes and say, like, I'm going into my writing cave. It's so lonely in my writing cave, but in my writing cave, thankfully, because of technology, I have a lot of writing friends that were either like, even just this morning, I was sprinting with another author friend of mine who lives in Texas, and we just on the phone, she would say, okay, I'm starting the timer for 30 minutes, go, and we write. And it just and so that's Mary Carlick. She and I were writing, but I have other text threads or DM messages, DM threads with several author friends that we just help support each other. We exchange manuscripts to give feedback. We kind of do early reads to give critique and that kind of thing, and it's super helpful. But I could share a couple names. We have a really strong the Latinx romance community is still small, but it's been growing more and more. So I'm always touching base with Alexis Daria and Mia Sosa, Sabrina Soul, who her next book, I just got it right here. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's underneath my laptop. I'm gonna move my laptop for a second and see. This is Sabrina's book that just came up. Big Chicas Don't Cry. It's her first under one of her pen names, Annette Macias Chavez. So Sabrina Soul or Annette Macias Chavez, Adriana Herrera, Diana Munoz Stewart. Here is Angelina M. Lopez. Her book, it's coming out in July. So there's a big, a nice group for me of close Latinx rom authors, and there are plenty others. I would say Latinx romance. Then you can also look for hashtag. It's Latinx Rom, ROM. And if you're not looking for Latinx romance, I say go and look anyway. But I have other groups. Sonali Dave writes beautiful work. Barbara O'Neill, Farah Rashan, and Kwana Jackson both have books that are coming out late this summer. So I would definitely recommend them. Jamie Beck has a book that's coming out, and all of these ladies and there are others. I would feel bad. I'm sure there are more I can name, but I would say if you're a writer out there, it's really helpful to network and to kind of find your group that we brainstorm together, we lift each other up, we kick each other in the butt when when we need to. It's really important. Yes, I'm blessed, and my family is super supportive of my writing. But even there are times even my mother has said when she's come to a presentation and I've talked about talking to my characters, and she's like, oh, I didn't realize that, right? But my loved ones who don't write don't quite get it all the time, and your writer friends will get it, and so it's important.
Absolutely. No, definitely. And that was such a fantastic answer to that question. I always love asking it during interviews because I know, like me, including all of the listeners and readers, are always looking for books to add to the never-ending stack of things that we need to read. And just,
I have plenty that I can recommend.
Love that. We're gonna have to send those over after by email or something.
Sure.
But yeah, and definitely. And I mean, I just have a few more like personal questions for you, if you don't mind. Like growing up Latinx and everything with the community, is there a moment where like you being able to speak both Spanish and English, has it showed you like language is super powerful? Have you ever had a moment where it kind of hit you that, oh, I'm a little bit different because I speak two different languages?
I don't know if I've felt different. I know I've felt that it's a blessing to be able to speak both. I think being able to speak a second language, whether it's Spanish or Mandarin or Tagalog or French. I would love to speak Italian. That's another language that I would love to learn. It just sounds so beautiful. I would love to speak Italian and go to Tuscany and drink some wine. That's on my travel list.
Definitely.
But so I don't necessarily that I've felt different or that I haven't allowed anybody to make me feel like I'm different because I speak another language. I think it's natural to me. I have had people ask about like the Spanish that's in my that shows up in the books. There's a lot of Spanglish, right? Like a mix of Spanish and English. And a common question is for someone to ask, like, how do you know when to put the Spanish or when to switch? Like at what point? And there's not like a moment. There's not, there's not a set, it's just what comes natural. And so speaking, being Latina and speaking two languages is just, I mean, that's how I grew up. We spoke Spanish first at home, and my sister and I learned English on the playground or when we went to preschool. And even now, mommy, papi, we all live together. My youngest, my youngest niece lives with us now as well. And mommy and I will be in the kitchen cooking or whatever, and it's not uncommon for us to code switch from English to Spanish, right? Like dame eso from the microwave, right? Which means give me that from the microwave. And because we're all fluent in both languages, then we can code switch so easily. So it's a natural part of me. And so that's what I would say within my books as well. The Spanish, the culture that's there, it's not there to mark them as different. It's there because it's a natural part of their life, and it's a part of who they are.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And also, like, for you as an author and writing and everything now, and being able to publish all of these best-selling books and romance stories, what was it like growing up? Like, when did you realize that this is what you want to do with your life and like, I want to be a writer?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say first I was a reader. My parents will tell a story about the summer after like second grade. I won like some kind of award for reading the most books. So that happens for a lot of writers. Like we're readers first, and I think it's important to continue reading. But I would say writing wise, probably in high school, I started writing short stories. We had like a short story unit or something in the English class. And that was the first time that I can remember my English teacher at that point, brought up to me, have you thought about writing or majoring in English when you go to college? You should really think about that. And until then, it was just like, for fun, or for assignments or just, passing the time. The first time that I typed the words chapter 1, I was 19. I was actually already married, a military spouse. We had a newborn, and I was a full-time college student, but we had a surprise military move, and I had to take a semester off. And I wanted still something to fill my time, since I wasn't going to be taking classes. And I did what a lot of people, do. And they say, well, I like reading books and I like writing. I'll just write a book. How hard can it be? It was very difficult to write a book. But so I first started then, and I finished the book. It was bad for a lot of reasons, but it like stuck with me, like, look, I can do this. And it took me a lot of years. It was 26 years before I finally signed my first contract. But through like, all that living and having kids and finishing all of my degrees and everything, I would still write when I could. Like it still stuck with me. I knew that it's what I wanted to do. So I think probably, most of my adult life from age 19, when I was like, I want to try this, I want to do this, and then finishing that book. So anybody out there, if you're working on your first book, keep going, get to the end, just so you can show yourself, yes, you can do it.
Nice. What was the biggest challenge that you faced when you really started getting into writing? Was it like, did you ever, I know like it's a common question, like everybody has writer's block, everybody has reader's block once in a while. But other than those types of things, was there a major challenge that you overcame that really like sparked your journey as a writer?
I would say, yes, like I think I can pinpoint like one important turning point in my career as a writer, or as unpublished. So maybe not career, but right as during my writing journey or my writing path, whatever, however you want to describe it. And it was when I first started writing, I was doing exactly what I tell my students now. I teach an online writing course called Romance Writing for Cengage Learning. It's a continuing education course, and we always talk about in there about the importance of reading within your genre, so you can see like what's being published, right now, and what readers are liking and reading, kind of those reader expectations, so that then what you want to bring to your books. And so that's what I was doing, studying the books that were on the market and writing books like that. But at that time, I was there. If there were, I didn't know where they were. Was not seeing any books with Latinx characters, and so all the books that I was writing had, white characters, just like the books that were on the shelves, or the ones that I was finding anyway. And yes, those early books were bad for a lot of other reasons besides this, but it wasn't until late 90s that I don't know, maybe 1999, 1998, around then, Kensington Books, who actually later became my first publisher, they had a line called the Encanto line, and those books were all the main characters were Latinx characters. Actually, the books, it was really interesting. Like, the book would be like this, and it was in English, and you'd read half the book, and that was the whole book, and then you would flip it over, and it was the same book but now in Spanish. And you could read it in Spanish. But that was the very first time I had ever seen characters that looked like me, that that were like my familia, that kind of thing. And it like clicked something in me that this is what I wanted to write. I feel like that's what was missing. That yes, my stories were each book that I wrote, I got a little bit better, but I feel like what was really missing was I wasn't writing the books that were in here, like in my heart. I was writing what I was seeing on the market, and seeing books in the Encanto line kind of like just click something like, this is what I want to write. And next few books didn't get published, but all of the books I started writing, the very next book had Latinx characters, and it was the first one of mine to final in a national contest. Like I said, it didn't sell, but I felt like that little piece of the puzzle, like that piece of me that I wanted to be infusing into the books, was kind of, was like given permission or whatever to come out. And to me, it just really reinforces the importance of diversity in the books that we read, the books that we see on the shelf. Everyone should be able to see themselves in the books that they, whether it's you want to be in the thriller section, you want to be in the romance section, wherever. But for me, especially in romance, like a genre that champions love, triumphing, and and hope, and all of that, I feel like it's important for everybody to be able to see themselves depicted on the pages of a romance novel. And that moment really, helped me with my writing.
Awesome. Absolutely. I completely agree with that, of course, too. And I think it's great that we live in like a generation at a time in our country where diversity is like celebrated now rather than being shunned or pushed under the rug. And you see a lot of different cultures and a lot of different things that are getting introduced to people nowadays.
Yeah.
It's super exciting.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. And I think there's long been a call for diversity, like in our books, in the authors that are writing them, even on the other side of the table, industry professionals. And we're hearing that call now, and there's change. I worry about the book bans that we hear now, and that's something that I'm totally, against. But it's nice that I feel like publishing houses are listening, and with the advent of self-publishing, we have more books and that are available to readers.
Definitely. And I'm super happy to like have all of these different options. I'm sure a lot of other
Mm-hmm.
readers out there like, like especially growing up, like as minorities, you don't really see a whole lot of representation in some of
Mm-mm.
the classic culture. It's a lot of just very Western ideology. And now we're kind of breaking more into this sphere of we're welcoming Asian, South American culture,
Yes.
European, a lot of things are just mixing all together. And it's a really cool thing to see. And it's a really cool thing to kind of watch grow and develop now.
It is. It is one of my favorite series that are out now. It's romance. Sonali Dave has it's a 4-book series, and they are Jane Austen retellings, but it's with an Indian American family that has like political kind of ties out in California. And so all four of her books, or the 4th book is getting ready to come out later in May, but it's a recipe. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna mess up the titles now, but A Recipe for Persuasion, Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors, the Emma Project, and Incense and Sensibility. But it's wonderful to, I mean, I love that it's classics that I grew up, that I read, but reimagined, and they're rich with culture, the Indian culture, and they're beautiful books. So if there's a Jane Austen fan out there, I highly recommend you look up Sonali's series.
Awesome. I'm sure there's plenty of listeners now that are going to be kind of reaching out and finding those now. And a little bit more of like personal questions, a little bit outside of writing. When you're not writing or you're not hanging out at home, what are some things that you do to pass the time or things that you enjoy?
Oh, sure. I enjoy traveling whenever I can. I like going up north to visit my girls when I'm in New York. I love theater, so we like to go see shows. I'm a huge sports fan, so if I can get to a baseball game while I'm there, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge Cubs fan, so I always check. Like I just looked at the schedule for what's Tampa Bay. Are the Cubs coming to Tampa this year? So I can maybe catch the Cubs in Tampa, because that's a couple hours away. So we see a lot of sports. I live near the University of Florida, where I attended, where my sister and my brother-in-law. So we're huge Gator fans. So we go to a lot of Gator sports. But for relaxing, my favorite well-refilling place is the beach. So a beach, an umbrella, a good book, a chair that leans all the way back so I can take a good nap. And if I can't get to the beach, then we've got a nice hammock in the backyard. So hammock naps I'm a queen when it comes to hammock naps.
Oh, that sounds heavenly. Gotta love a good hammock.
Yes.
Honestly, that's actually all the questions that I had for you for the interview today. And was there anything that you wanted to add in regards to your upcoming book or any of your other stories that you kind of want to talk about with our listeners and readers today?
No, I mean, I think we covered it. I gave a little blurb about West Side Love Story, so I think we're good. I can be a talker, so I felt like my answers might be way long, but
No, not at all. You had some awesome answers. And as an interviewer, like just getting you to kind of elaborate and just build on everything is like, that's all that I ask for.
okay.
So I really appreciate it. You've been really fun to
Sure.
interview.
No, you're good. You had great questions.
I'm glad.
Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure. And that's going to be all for the interview. Before we go, is there anything that you'd like to say to any of our listeners?
Hi, book nerds. I'm Priscilla Oliveras, and you are listening to the JeanBookNerd podcast. Be sure to check out JeanBookNerd.com for the full interview transcript and for lots more bookish fun.